Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a totally normal podcast about films, Atten Path. Because the day I don't introduce that podcast as Atten Path is the day I die. I am Claire, and I am joined by my co-host,
Leon.
And as brought up in the last episode, we have watched together The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, a 1920 silent horror movie which might be the earliest surviving horror movie.
Probably.
That is a full movie, because stuff like Edison's Frankenstein is only 15 minutes.
Yeah, like probably the first feature-length horror movie.
Yeah. I don't think it's the first ever, and that's because I know there was a Golem movie from 1915.
Oh yeah, the Golem movie, yeah.
But those are unfortunately lost. It is... I think it counts as the first slasher movie.
Yeah.
It's also the first of another type of movie, but I'm not going to get into that yet because it's a spoiler.
Yeah.
Now, as always, before we get into spoiler territory, what was your just general thoughts on the movie?
So this was the second silent film I ever watched, I guess. The first one was Nosferatu.
Oh, we are the same there.
Yeah, okay. Actually I watched some comedies, but yeah, so the second horror German expressionist silent film. And I did quite enjoy it. I did like the aesthetics. I did especially like the set design. The music was amazing, but we can talk about this later more in detail. And I think the story was... I didn't expect this much for a movie that old.
Yeah, you'd expect it to be really more simplistic, but there was a lot of layers to it.
Yeah. So what about you?
Okay, so I've seen 4 things that are silent. 2 of them being films, 2 of them being shorts. And I think this might be my favourite silent thing. Yeah, obviously, A Trip to the Moon is incredible.
Yeah.
Edison's Frankenstein's really good, if not made redundant by every other adaptation of Frankenstein. And Nosferatu, while absolutely excellent, I feel like as an adaptation of Dracula isn't the best. I think it's better for its imagery. However, if combining imagery, the story, and just, enjoyability, this was a great film. Right, so yeah, I think this was my favourite silent movie. Granted, I have a feeling that that might get replaced.
For me too.
Oh, that's cool.
Maybe A Trip to the Moon a little bit more. So maybe my second favorite, because I just adore A Trip to the Moon.
Yeah, it's called A Trip to the Moon. One of those things. It's one of those movies, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, you were saying something.
No, I was just wondering if A Trip to the Moon was the right title, because I only know the German title.
It is A Trip to the Moon in English. Yeah, so silent movies is like a bit of a weird oddity. Because they weren't around that long. By the 30s, they were basically gone.
Yeah.
I think there was one I know there was a Call of Cthulhu one in 2005. But, they don't exist anymore, basically. And I don't think they're the most accessible kind of film. I like them. but I'm not going to be a pretentious cinema snob and be like, damn current generation doesn't like silent movies. They're tricky watches.
Yeah, you have to
know,
get
like-
used to them.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, go on.
No. Go you.
Okay, I think you have to appreciate for what they've done to modern day cinema. They even influence today's filmmakers to some degree, or movies like Wall-E were heavily influenced by them too, because Wall-E doesn't speak, and basically the first 30 minutes of Wall-E is a silent film.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it.
Yeah, you're right. And it is important to remember that, like, kind of going off what you just said there, silent movies walked so talking movies could run.
Yeah.
So many techniques were invented. Some that I'll come up with, like when we eventually discuss other ones. Like, I really want to do the 1925 Phantom of the Opera at some point.
Yeah, me too.
Starring the amazing Lon Chaney. And we were discussing earlier about potentially doing Nosferatu for its 100th anniversary.
Next year.
Mm-hmm. Which would be absolutely fantastic to do.
Okay, anything else about your basic expression, or should we go right into the movie?
Nah. Let's go right into it.
Impression, sorry.
If you care about spoilers for a 101-year-old movie, it's on YouTube, it's in the public domain. It's pretty easy to watch nowadays.
Yeah.
So, where the heck should we begin with this one? There's a lot to discuss.
Maybe a short plot summary.
Okay, yeah. So, the whole movie, it's a flashback. The whole movie's entirely in flashback form, with the exception of the start and the end.
Yeah.
And our protagonist, was it Francis?
Francis was the name, yeah.
Francis, yeah. Is recalling the tale of what happened recently, where he basically experienced like true horror. The local fair, like the town had set up a fair, and within that, his friend, was it Alan?
Alan, yeah.
Alan, and their mutual love, who we both commented, they had a very pure love triangle.
Maybe the purest love triangle I ever saw in movie history.
Yeah. There's like an entire title card dedicated to like, we are both after this girl, but we will respect her decision to remain friends even after. It's like, oh, so pure.
Respecting
One of you
women.
dies. Respect women.
100 years ago.
And one of the star attractions of this entire thing is the mysterious Dr. Caligari, who presents. They describe him as a man. They describe him as a very weird word that basically means sleepwalker. But he's a man who has slept for all 23 years of his life, being awoken.
Just let me look for this word. It was something along the lines of insomnia, but...
Yeah, it was a somnus something.
Yeah, just go on and I look for the word and then I can
and
edit later.
He can make predictions of the future. And Alan asks him, how long do I have left to live? And then he says, till the break of dawn. And that night, Alan is murdered. And it basically kind of just begins this murder mystery where everyone begins to suspect it's the sleepwalker Caesar. But then there's like another criminal and there are two Caesars. We can get more into the fine details, especially with the ending, but it's a really well done murder mystery.
It is.
A somnambulist. I'm gonna say sleepwalker. It's such a complicated word.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to say it. I just sent it to you. Somnambulist or something like that.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's a fancy word for sleepwalker.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he doesn't really walk, he sleeps most of the time.
Yeah.
In a coffin or something that looks like
it's
a coffin.
The cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
Before we get into the final plot details, I have to point out, absolutely love the title cards in this one. The version we had these really nice ones where the words fit the whole aesthetic of the movie instead of just being white text on a black background.
Yeah, I looked at the German version later after we watched it together, and the title cards look pretty alike, so they use the same font.
Oh, that's really neat to hear.
Yeah.
Because they could have easily just not done that. On the Cinemassacre video on it, I think most DVD releases or Blu-ray releases now just use the German one with English subtitles, like how most releases Nosferatu does it.
Yeah, it's another form of appreciation for the art, so you don't want to change the movie that much, and if you want to experience the movie how it was originally intended, then you can just add subtitles. But I think it's nice if you translate it and use the same font, and I liked it.
Yeah, because I have absolutely no issue with people, making remakes of classic movies and doing their own alterations, but it's when you get into stuff like dubbing silent movies or colouring silent movies where I'm like, it's like, okay, it's cool, but if this is becoming the version that's going to replace the original, that's a bit cocky.
Yeah.
I have no issue to it. In fact, I really like looking up recoloured Doctor Who screenshots.
I love this whole colouring of black and white photos. That stuff is nice.
It's so cool.
And Trip to the Moon did the same thing. They colored this black and white movie too. So
I think with Phantom of the Opera, they specifically coloured his cape.
I don't know that. I didn't see the Phantom of the Opera yet.
So talking about colour, what the heck was going on with the colour in this movie?
I think it's the same like with Nosferatu. So either it was yellowish, or it was bluish or grey. And I think this is to distinguish between day and night in those movies, because when it's black and white, you can't distinguish that.
That's quite clever. I like that. Out of the two colours, I think it looked better in that kind of yellowy sepia look. More brownier.
Yeah.
I think it looked a bit nicer that way, but that makes sense.
At least that's what I heard about Nosferatu, why they changed colors every now and then.
It would probably be the same.
Yeah.
So I think one of the big things to bring up, just at this point, would be before we get really into the movie, is the version of the soundtrack we got.
Yeah.
Now I know with re-releasing silent movies, it's a bit awkward. Yeah, I know some use the sheet music that the orchestra would play.
Mm-hmm.
Some use their own music. We were treated to a free-form jazz routine. And it oddly works.
yeah, it's added to the whole vibe of the film, I guess.
Yeah, it's very like there's something very dreamlike about this movie, and I think this, as I said, the soundtrack adds to that.
Yeah.
And you commented whilst we were watching, it even results to what might be cinema's first jump scare. Through one powerful saxophone blast.
And then the whole orchestra joined in and whoa.
Oh, yeah. Like the scene where he's running from like the entire town. Like there's a lot of people after him. And the saxophone guy is just going nuts. He's having the time of his life.
Yeah. I think it must have made a lot of fun composing or doing a new arrangement.
I think one of my favourite bits was, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was when Dr. Caligari is awakening Caesar for the first time.
Yeah.
And there was this really cool piece of music where it was as if half the music was this very ominous villain theme and half the music was still the fairground. Like something was, there was something evil going on at this fair.
Yeah. So the thing I liked about the music was actually when it was less jazzy, I enjoyed it more. I think because they used this drone sound. Like, I don't know if any of you ever watched Eraserhead.
Oh, I have not got round to that yet, and I'm scared of touching it.
Yeah, probably we will talk about it in another episode someday. Because David Lynch does something amazing in this movie. I think he spent over a year to compose the whole soundtrack, and it's like this continuous buzzing and droning sound that feels really unnatural and makes you feel like you're in a dreamlike state. And I think this movie does, at least with the soundtrack, we've got something similar.
I agree. Well, we kind of got good themes. 2 Japanese movies, 2 dream movies.
Yeah.
So, any more you want to comment on music?
Nope.
Okay then. Should we get on to just the aesthetic of the movie? Because
yeah, that's probably my favorite part about that movie. So go on.
Yeah, it's incredible how this movie looks.
So how would you describe it?
I know the actual way to describe it is German Expressionism.
Yeah, that's the easy way. But for someone who doesn't know what German Expressionism is, what...
I'd say it's like... Yeah. It looks as if the world has been pulled by a black hole slightly. Everything is just warped. You've got windows that are not square. You have doors that are massive and triangular. All the buildings are at an angle. Like the whole town. There's like a really nice picture that they've used for the backdrop of the town.
Behind the fair.
It almost looks like every house is almost being sucked up to the top.
Yeah, it's this big distorted world.
Distortion, yes. And it looks phenomenal. It really gives you this vibe that there's something unrealistic, there's something not right.
Yeah, it's like an art when you go further away from realism and kind of embrace emotion or try to invoke emotions with weird shapes
Mm.
Yeah.
It's like if Pablo Picasso tried to make a world.
Exactly, yeah.
And oh wow, you could literally go shot by shot and just talk so much about the set.
Like, I think there isn't really one straight line in this world.
There really isn't. With the
I don't.
exception of maybe the garden scene, but I've got a theory about what's going on there.
Oh, okay. So, for me, I don't know if you know this artist or if he is even called like that in English. It's called Hundertwasser. Do you know him?
I might know him, but I don't know that many artists by name.
Okay, so he's like an architect, and for me, his style of architecture reminded me really much of this movie.
Okay.
Like, he doesn't. For him, it was like never use a straight line. And that's really weird for an architect.
Yeah. But like that is cool. And if that's the case, I agree. That's kind of like how this movie is. Everything is just there are no squares.
Yeah.
We live in a square world, and there is not a single square.
They went more with triangles in this one.
And I will say that, despite the fact that, like, it's obvious the town is a painting, considering the time, it looks really cool.
I didn't even mind that it was a painting, so I did notice, but I think it fitted really well.
Yeah, and if people have an issue with that, I think the best way to describe it is, then just start thinking of this film as a recorded play.
Yeah, it has many characteristics of a play.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think it runs a lot better if it's kind of got that. It's a little bit like a play vibe. It's kind of like it's like knowing Cats is based on a book of poems. It makes Cats better.
Which cats do you mean?
I'm also referring to the stage play version.
Thank you, okay. We
Yeah.
don't talk about that movie.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Okay, but again, back to Caligari. What I did like too was that over this distorted architecture they did like little drawings. Did you notice that? Like I don't know if I want to say that word yet. Maybe wait. I say it later.
Okay.
But in the beginning, Dr. Caligari comes into town and he goes to this guy to ask him if he can show his cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think to represent this bureaucracy, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Okay.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah, to represent that, they painted numbers on the walls of this house they were in. Did you notice that?
I did not.
So in the foreground, they had some numbers and stuff like this, and it also seemed like there were documents drawn on the walls, and I think that was to show what kind of building they are in right now.
But without spending a fortune on books. That's quite clever.
And they did similar things later on. But I didn't want to say that yet because it would be kind of spoiler territory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I think I know the exact scene, like, one of the scenes you're on about.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a lot of details, like the lighting as well in this movie. There's like one particular staircase that like the lighting looks phenomenal on. There's a lot of really good shot stuff. It knows how to draw your attention. It's like it's cinematography. It's just a very cinematography being used in a very stylistic way, and I'm a fan. It's
Yeah,
not even through like creative camera angles, it's through creative set design.
this and the makeup in combination.
Oh, yes. The makeup and facial acting in this film is incredible.
It's incredible how these actors have such a wide variety of expressions they can show just with their eyes.
Mm. Yeah, there's like, considering how like considering it is silent, like yeah, of course they have to do that, but it's still impressive.
Yeah. So maybe one last question before we go into the plot and spoiler territory. Or do you want to add something else?
No, go on. Ask your question. I don't really have that much more to say on the architecture that has it. That is it. Basically, just it looks good.
Okay. So my question is, what was your favorite scene or shot?
Ooh, scene or shot. Okay, this is a plot. It is a plot point. So I'll say my actual favorite scene for when we're talking more in depth about the plot. But the scene where Caesar first wakes up is really good.
That's exactly the scene I like the most.
Yeah, like the slow waking up, the creepy stare.
Yeah, it's really close up of his face. And I think I saw that before. I didn't even know that it was from this movie, but I think I saw this particular shot somewhere else.
It's one of the most iconic scenes of I consider it on par with Nosferatu, no, not Nosferatu, Count Orlok from Nosferatu entering the doorway
Yeah.
and
Or
climbing
the
up the
shadow
stairs.
of him.
Yeah, the shadow up the stairs. That is the same kind of iconography as Caesar's stare.
Like he stares right into your soul.
Mm. And it's like, it's one of the rules of cinema, you don't look directly at the camera. But the fact that he is just makes it all the more terrifying. It's
like he's aware that we are watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause this. It's so I watched the Cinemassacre video on this earlier. I'll try and remember to put it in the description because it's a really great video. And he made a really great point, which is that there's something very mystical about this movie because it's no one who worked on it is still alive.
Whoa,
So we don't know how they did
that.
most of it.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's been destroyed. It's just. It's like when you. It's like. It's so weird because in my mind, cinema is new. It's existed for like a century before I was born, but cinema is new in the grand scheme of things. But it's not.
It's new and old at the same time. Like, watching at the entire history, it's new. But if you see how far we've come today, it's like, well, it is more than a lifespan.
Yeah. It's incredible. So shall we get into the plot? More thoroughly now. So my favourite scene, because, and I was thinking this, and again, he pointed it out in the video on Cinemassacre. So the first shocking scene from a movie, if I'd ask you what is the earliest shocking scene from a movie, chances are the shower scene from Psycho is probably going to come up.
Exactly.
At some point. This film did it first.
Yeah.
Granted, it's not as graphic, but Caesar stabbing Alan to death, shown by the shadows, is a really graphic scene.
You know what? That was exactly my what I thought when I saw that scene, that it's like the shower scene from Psycho.
Yeah.
And then I thought again, it was like, well, this movie is older than Psycho.
By 4 decades.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like, to give a comparison, 11 years later, we have, the fantastic adaptation of Dracula starring Bela Lugosi.
Mm-hmm.
Does not show a death on screen other than Dracula's. It's all implied off screen, and barely even with shadow. But this, he's getting killed. There's no subtlety to it.
Yeah, and it's probably why you said it was the first slasher movie, because it's very explicit for its time.
Yeah. Even if there's a very little amount of actual victims in this movie, I think 2 people are killed.
Yep.
And yeah, that scene's phenomenal. I commented as well that the scene where Caesar goes to kidnap, that scene's great, but he just fucking tears off the window.
That's a superhuman strength.
Yeah. Any scene you particularly want to focus on?
Maybe right after he kidnaps Jane. I guess her name was Jane.
Yeah.
So when he flees out of the window, and you see this shot where he carries her and goes up those rooftops. I think it was rooftops.
Yeah.
Or a alleyway or something like that.
I think it was meant to be rooftops.
Okay. So he's on these rooftops and you see his silhouette mostly in front of this white backdrop. Like he's standing in front of the moon or something like that. I just loved this shot.
It was very effective. Especially with how the rooftops are very angular and stuff.
Yeah.
But yet walkable. It's just... There is so much to analyze here. Another great scene, I think, that is absolutely worth bringing up. Jumping a bit further into the movie.
Yeah.
Is towards the end, Caligari, after being caught, like he's found out, he flees to an insane asylum.
Yeah, that's the building I didn't want to mention before.
Ah, yes. Shall we get into that after my point?
Yeah.
And they enter the asylum, and it's revealed that Caligari is the director of the asylum. And in a flashback within a flashback, as they read Caligari's diary, it is revealed that He's an expert in sleepwalkers, and is very curious about the old tale of Dr. Caligari and his sleepwalker Caesar, which mirrors what's been happening. And it's basically revealed in, and I think this might be the scene that you're about to discuss. It's revealed that he began to get obsessed to the point where he began to think he was Caligari. There's this incredible scene where you had to translate for this for me because the film didn't. Where he's going through the halls of the asylum, and the words "You are Dr. Caligari" keeps appearing.
Yeah. So in German, it says, "Du musst Caligari werden," what translates to "You must become Caligari."
Ah, yes. You must become Caligari, and it's quite the impressive scene. Showing his spiral that way.
Yeah, I think it's even better than some modern movies would make it when you show how a character goes insane.
Yeah, like, usually it's very... it's very, like... It's either very sudden, or it's super cliche, they're screaming, they're laughing. His is a bit more tragic. It's almost like you kind of feel sorry for him. He's like, he can't escape his own mind.
Yeah, it's like those writings that appear on screen, that these are the voices that are talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting how they did that, because as it was a silent film, they couldn't actually use voices talking to him, so they just wrote it on screen. And they didn't just wrote it on screen, they made it so that it fitted to the objects on screen. Like, the writing appeared on the wall of the asylum, the writing appeared on a branch of a tree.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me a lot. You've seen Friday the 13th, right?
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of how, the theme, the iconic... that?
Yeah. Everybody
It's actually
knows
kill, mama. It's Jason pushing his mom to kill. It's her fault. It reminds me a lot of that. Except this was 1920.
Yeah.
God, this film was ahead of its time.
Actually, we have to talk later when we finish discussing this movie. We have to talk about what it inspired and its legacy.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot to discuss. In fact, we still got to touch the ending. We've probably still got a couple scenes left. And I wanted to tell you about... I learned this from the Cinematica video. What the film actually symbolises. Do you want me to say that? Do you want me to talk about what the film is symbolising?
Yeah, go on.
So, the film was released in 1920. And,
after the Great War.
After the Great War,
the so-called Great War.
Yeah. The war to end all wars.
Yeah.
Now, sadly, that didn't quite work the way people expected it to. But,
Well, it left German cinema as this emo child, kind of. Like every other cinematic movement was like quiet and happy that the war was over. Only Germany was very devastated and started with German expressionism.
I'm just loving it's like every other country. Charlie Chaplin, the Three Stooges, all this delightful stuff. Germany, it's like, right, this is a bit shit.
Yeah. So, but go on.
Dr. Caligari represents authority, and Caesar represents the brainwashed that are willing, that were like fighting because they were told. It's basically criticizing war in its own subtle way.
Mm-hmm.
That like, leaders get the people who will follow them to fight, and at the end, it's the people who follow end up being the ones who get the most hurt, because I noted this down. Caesar's the victim here.
Yeah, actually, it's just like war, because this authority figure even pushed Caesar to kill what people do in war. Like, authorities push people who wouldn't do this under normal circumstances. At least most of them wouldn't do this. There are always exceptions, yeah. But that's what happens in war. You are pushed to your limits and you kill even if you wouldn't do it under different circumstances.
A lot of very good people did a lot of things that they would never want to do during World War One. And, it's fascinating to see. Like, post-war cinema is always going to be interesting. The films that come out in the following years. It's like after World War II, traditional monster movies became less scary. It became sci-fi movies that were scary. You had that fear of the atomic bomb.
Yeah. And then we got stuff like Godzilla.
Godzilla is the perfect example.
Like, it's nice how movies mirror what happens in our world. Especially genres like horror.
I feel like horror is the perfect mirror.
Yes. Even today's horror mirrors perfectly what's going on. Stuff like Get Out mirroring racism today.
Yes, I was just thinking Get Out.
Yeah, and before that there was this whole craze about home invasion movies, that you're not even safe there.
Yeah. The Purge.
And then there was body horror, like or stuff like The Thing, that copes with the Cold War and the fear of Soviets.
Alien movies like Alien, the fact that we're not alone in the universe, and that's kind of terrifying.
So, but we are again going too far away from the movie we're talking about. I don't think that's actually
that off topic, like, because it's like yeah, but what's Dr. Caligari? It is an innocent person being forced to kill
in something like a dreamlike state.
Yeah. Do you want to get on to the ending now? Or have you got have you got more stuff to discuss?
No.
Okay, so the ending of the movie was... Okay, I'm gonna say this, and I know this is a really stupid way to put it, but I like how I'm gonna put this. This was the earliest big dick move I think I've ever seen in cinema. Like, this is the earliest flex I've ever seen. So, at the end of the film, they confront Dr. Caligari in his office. And he snaps upon seeing... I thought he was just passed out, but apparently he died. A dead Caesar. And attempts to attack the other doctors. They put him in a straitjacket and seal him away.
And then you think the movie's over. But...
Yeah, because it cuts to the present and it's... it's Francis talking to his friend. And then it's revealed that Francis is actually a patient at the asylum. Jane is just... is a woman basically trapped in her own mind, convinced she's a queen. Caesar is actually quite gentle.
Yeah, you see him...
So go on.
Yeah, you see him at the wall, like inspecting a flower in his hands.
And at this point, early on, my brain initially was like, okay, have they managed to like treat and look after Caesar, and he's just like frightened, and has Jane, been traumatized by the events?
Yes, because he says to his friend, don't let him foretell your future or you die. And that's when the friend, so the person he talked to, leaves him and is kind of put off by him.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really clever. The director enters the room, and it's the Doctor, but he doesn't look quite as ragged or as weird. He looks respectable. And the end twist is that this didn't happen. That Francis is the one who's insane. What a bold way to end the movie. Like, that has to be one of the first plot twists.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I like this that much.
Oh, I really liked it. I think I needed a minute to think on it, but I ended up really liking it as an ending. Because it surprised me. I was expecting it to end happy.
Yeah, it's a lot of more like this is how things would be in the real world. Like, it's not this movie happy ending everyone always wishes to happen.
And it's especially interesting because it played off my expectations of old horror, and I think that's why it's aged magnificently. A lot of old horror movies, and honestly, I think this goes up to like even like Halloween, is that the monster is defeated. That's it. It's a very abrupt end. There's no aftermath, and the fact that not only was there an aftermath, but it was actually quite a twisty aftermath. Just fantastic.
I think one thing I liked about the end was that the last thing you read is something along the lines like the Doctor says, oh, now I know he thinks I'm Caligari. I know exactly how to treat him. And that's the end.
Yeah.
And it zooms in on his face and you're expecting something like... It's like they cut away before he grins.
Yes!
And you could see that he actually is Caligari, but they cut away before that.
Yeah, there's something very psychological about the end. Continue.
No, that's actually what I wanted to say.
Oh, okay. You see, you can actually tell we both really enjoyed the movie acting because we both have a lot to say. Like, the fact that we're getting to the point now where we'd normally like start wrapping up the podcast and we have an entire additional topic to discuss.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, what has this movie inspired? So
do you want to go first? Okay,
it was you suggested the topic.
So, I think the first thing it inspired was all following German expressionistic movies, of course, like Nosferatu, Metropolis, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Faust. And after that, like when Hitler came to power, this movie was seen as this degenerated art, you know?
Yeah.
So the art Hitler didn't like, or all art that was made by Jews and stuff like that.
Oh, this makes this movie even better if Hitler hated it.
Exactly. So they did stuff like burning books and media that didn't fit in their ideology.
Oh, and
Caligari was among that, and movie makers from that time, they flew to the US, for example, and they inspired monster movies.
That makes sense. I know the guy who played Caesar ended up starring in a lot of American movies, notably Casablanca.
Yeah. Like, he was one of them who noticed what was happening in Germany. And he had the luck to escape.
Yeah. And, like, if anything, it's a miracle this movie's still watchable then.
That it's still here and we can watch it today, yes. And another thing it's heavily influenced was more modern art. Like, I heard David Bowie liked this movie a lot and was inspired by it, like with his stage personas. For example, the Duke. I don't know how much you know about David Bowie, but he had
I like his songs.
Yeah, he had this one dark persona called the Duke, and I think this one was especially inspired by German expressionism. And maybe an artist, I would say artist, that more people know about, or more people know the work of, is Tim Burton.
Yes.
When I saw the set pieces of this movie, I instantly thought, well, that's just like a set piece of a Tim Burton movie, especially stuff like his older stuff like Edward Scissorhands.
Like, yeah, like, take Jack's house from Nightmare Before Christmas, or even just some of the interior shots from Vincent.
Yeah.
They would fit perfectly.
And another thing that fits is that Tim Burton kind of sympathized with these outsider figures.
Okay.
Like, Edward is an outcast. Sweeney Todd is an evil. So yeah, he's the evil person. But he's still the person we are following through a movie. Like, those weird personalities, they are the ones that interest Tim Burton, and he makes them to the heroes of his stories. And that's kind of what Caesar is. So he's not a hero, but you kind of sympathize with him as soon as you learn that he doesn't do this at his own free will.
Yeah. Like, it's quite impressive. Like, one, I absolutely guarantee, like, if you watch any gothic horror movie, there's going to be a little bit of inspiration. Like,
Yeah.
It's so impressive. I know bits of, like, the 1930s Frankenstein was inspired by this. You mentioned earlier Nosferatu, Metropolis. And while Nosferatu's a bit more to standard, it still kind of has that eerie architecture. Gamely, I wrote this up earlier. The scene where he enters through the door, how it just fits him.
Or his castle.
Yeah, his entire castle, yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite... Yeah, it's quite... this is probably one of the most important movies ever made, and I feel like not a lot of people know it exists.
And in my eyes, you should give it a shot. You can watch it on YouTube or
It's
somewhere
public
else.
domain.
Yeah.
And there is actually a 2005 remake of it that keeps its original style. It's just, I think, just trying to make it a bit more modern, but with modern techniques. So maybe give that a shot. So how are we rating this thing? Because what the heck do you rate a classic?
Yeah. Oh, I just saw the release date. It was on 26th of February, and at the time of recording, that's 2 days ago.
Oh, we just missed its 101st
101
birthday.
years old. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we do something like a genre rating, or a rating from the perspective of the time it came out, and a rating for our modern day viewing point.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that's a good precedent to do for older movies. Like these older.
So first of yeah.
I would say like things like older influential movies.
Yeah.
Want to start with Of the Time?
So like we would view it if we were back
Yeah.
then. Yeah. So you can start if you want.
So Of the Time. Now I know I said there's no such thing as a 10 out of 10 movie. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is a 10 out of 10 movie. And at the time, for the time, it's perfect. It's like actually one of the greatest pieces of cinema I've ever watched.
I agree with you on that. I would also rate it a 10 out of 10 of the time. Because it was so inventive. The music, the set piece, makeup, and story, they all work so well together.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
It
is a 10 out of 10 for me for that time.
You know what?
And now maybe.
You know what? Even though it has aged, like by today's standards, it's a little slow, and silent movies, they are a little difficult to watch. I'd still say it's a solid 8 by today's standards.
I would have gone with 8 too.
We are very
so
in
I
sync
think we
today.
Yeah. I don't know if that happened before. Oh, I think Paprika was the same score too, but before that we were a little bit
I think I was a bit more lenient on Mothra than you were.
Yeah. But I did enjoy Mothra.
Oh yeah.
Go listen to that episode if you didn't already.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
But it's like, even as a modern story, this film's aged well. Like, to give a comparison, Nosferatu. It's not the version of Dracula you're gonna casually sit down and watch, let's be honest.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's a little bit too long. Like this one, it only has like 74 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
At least the version we watched.
I have an explanation for the timing thing, but finish your point.
Yeah, and I think I like when a movie only uses the time it needs.
Yeah.
Like, if it drags out at the end, I think that's a pity sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. The reason why it has the two accepted times seem to be 70 minutes and 45 minutes. 70 minutes is the proper time. It's because some versions play the reel faster.
Mm-hmm.
Some versions set up a bit too fast. I know this happens with a couple movies. I know, for example, The Passion of Joan of Arc, which is considered by many to be the greatest silent movie. I heard the Blu-ray of that actually includes a 20 frames per second and a 24 frame per second version. I think this worked fine at 70.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. Nosferatu, great film. It does go on a bit.
Yeah, like the plot. I don't want to talk too much about Nosferatu, but the part where he gets to the town, that takes a little bit too long in my eyes.
Yeah. And it's not like Dracula's the fastest story of the planet either.
Yeah.
Like, heck, the 30s version of Dracula takes its time too. But I want to clarify something about scoring as well, at least for me. If I give two movies the same score, but it's like obviously one's better than the other, keep in mind that, like, in my mind, I'm rating it in association with other films of its type.
Yeah.
So, like
that's this genre rating.
Yeah. It's like, for example, if I rate a cheesy Godzilla movie a 7 out of 10, that does not mean that I think a cheesy Godzilla movie is better than every movie that I rated 6 or below. It just means that for a Godzilla movie, it's 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I understand you there. Like, if you really enjoy trash movies, stuff like Sharknado, and you think, like, that was a really fun watch, I enjoyed it a lot, and I would give it a 7 too.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't put it on the same level as the Godzilla movie I rated 7. But I would stay with my rating because I'm comparing it to other movies in that genre.
Mm-hmm. Like, there are a lot of movies, and alongside with that, there are actually a lot of movies that I recognise as being great, but I'm not even the biggest fan of, to be honest. Like, this is a very controversial thing for an old horror fan. Don't lynch me. The original Dracula and Frankenstein are very hard to watch now. They're excellent movies. I think Lugosi and Karloff's portrayals are incredible. Not the version of Dracula and Frankenstein I go to. Gotta be honest.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's stuff like Avatar.
Oh, yeah.
The movie of James Cameron. I didn't like that one, and I know it was a long time the most successful movie of all times.
Yeah, it got dethroned by Endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, well, it's subjective.
Mm-hmm. You know, like, there are people who think King Kong's the greatest movie ever made. There are people who think Titanic's the greatest movie ever made. And there are people who are incorrect and think it's Twilight, but we will...
Yeah, because we all know Scooby-Doo is the best movie ever made.
Yes.
And I think that's the perfect note to wrap up today.
Yes, I completely agree. Do you want to set up our next exciting movie?
Oh yeah, of course. So the next one I would suggest is 12 Angry Men. I don't know what the genre is called. Wait, let me Google it.
I think it's a bit of a courtroom drama.
No, I meant, is it chamber play? Like when it's only in one location?
Yes. I think it might be.
So Google says it's chamber play.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right, but that's what I
It gives the idea. No, I'm very curious about watching this movie, but do you mind telling the audience about just like the general idea?
Yeah, so it's a courtroom play and it plays out, I think it's in real time. So there are those 12 people who are part of the jury. And the basic plot is they have to vote the same. So either they say he should be convicted or he shouldn't be convicted. And they want to do it fast, so they just vote right at the start. And only one person says he shouldn't be convicted. And that's where the movie starts, really. Like they ask him why he don't thinks that a person who's probably a murderer shouldn't be convicted.
Yeah, and I don't know much about this movie. I will be renting it from Amazon Prime to watch for the first time. But I'm going to assume, like, as it goes on, more gets unraveled, and, maybe the case isn't quite as simple as they once believed.
Exactly.
Family Guy did a very funny
this.
episode on this.
Who?
Family Guy did a good episode on it where it's the exact same concept.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say right away, it's one of my favorite movies.
Ooh, that's exciting. And also, it's going to be, just as like a small aside from like a series point of view, so far we've got so many different genres down.
Yeah. So, and the connection from the movie today to the next is it's both black and white.
Mm-hmm. And who knows, it might also be a new favourite for me too. But you'll just have to find out next time.
See you then.
Farewell.
Bye.